أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
وأن هذا صراطي مستقيما فاتبعوه ولا تتبعوا السبل فتفرق بكم عن سبيله ذلكم وصاكم به لعلكم تتقون. إن الذين فرقوا دينهم وكانوا شيعا لست منهم في شيء إنما أمرهم إلى الله ثم ينبئهم بما كانوا يفعلون. منيبين إليه واتقوه وأقيموا الصلاة ولا تكونوا من المشركين من الذين فرقوا دينهم وكانوا شيعا كل حزب بما لديهم فرحون.
أم لهم شركاء شرعوا لهم من الدين ما لم يأذن به الله ولولا كلمة الفصل لقضي بينهم وإن الظالمين لهم عذاب أليم.
والسابقون الأولون من المهاجرين والأنصار والذين اتبعوهم بإحسان رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه وأعد لهم جنات تجري تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا ذلك الفوز العظيم.
Going back to the first person, another lecture that he gave in a conference in Stanford University, and unfortunately it was an Islam summer conference. He made the following statement. Again, shows you how the modernists, or those that are influenced by the modernists, can look to the Qur'an and look to the Sunnah of the Prophet. He said in this lecture, he gave a long lecture about, actually, I may make this comment. The one who organized the lecture was very clear about what I was supposed to speak about and what he was supposed to speak about. Well, he spoke about what both me and him were supposed to speak about, but that's I hate that one. Pardon me? See, I'm debating. See, in the early lecture series I gave, I named all names and gave all references, and some people were really upset about it. So I think it's sufficient just to see the signs, and when you come across them, you inshallah know them. We learn from our experiences, don't we? So this man in that long lecture about the Sunnah, he said, towards the end of the lecture, he said, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to make ijtihad. Okay? That statement's okay. Some scholars say some of the Sunnah was ijtihad, some scholars say none of the Sunnah was ijtihad, but that's okay so far. He's staying within the realm of what the scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaal say. He said the Prophet ﷺ sometimes made ijtihad, and sometimes he was incorrect. Okay? So that's okay. So far it's okay. No problem with that. Scholars from Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaal, they said sometimes the Prophet ﷺ made ijtihad, and Allah corrected him if he was wrong. Right? But here's the point. He said that the Prophet ﷺ sometimes made mistakes in his ijtihad, and Allah did not correct him. So what's his next statement? So we have to go to the Sunnah and we have to determine where he was correct in his ijtihad and where he was incorrect. This person is a well-known speaker. He's speaking at ISNA summer conference. That shows you how widespread this influence is. Not just their institution, not just their magazines, but they're influencing even other speakers. Well, we went over that. If you want to buy the tapes, Mecca will be very happy if you buy the tapes and get all the names. But again, this gives us an idea of how people are approaching the Qur'an and Sunnah. That we have to judge it in the light of our own life. In fact, one person said that it's okay now for women who are menstruating to pray and attend the mosque. Why? Well, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they didn't have tampons. Now we have tampons. There's no fear that blood will fall on the ground, so there's no harm. And in some of these you don't know whether to cry or to laugh. Well, it's the same with the person who said that now, excuse me, said that, for example, that American women are different. And so therefore it's okay for an American Muslim woman to marry a Kafir man. Same kind of thing. Same kind of approach. I don't think we need any more examples, do we? Right. Let me move on to what is their danger, what is some of the evil effects of this group. First of all, we have to realize that this group, these people, they have their own minhaj, they have their own usul, they have their own, in other words, they have their own methodology. It's different from the methodology of Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaal, without any doubt about it. And what does that mean? That means this group is another group from Ahl Bidah. Another group of heretics and innovators. Therefore, all the things that I said about the dangers of Ahl Bidah applies to them. Don't need to repeat them, but all of those things apply to them. What is particularly dangerous about them in this country is that many times they use tricky arguments. They recite verses in the Qur'an or they recite hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and many times they're reciting them to people who, for example, are not familiar with the Arabic language, not familiar with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Sometimes they'll quote weak hadith, false hadith, whatever supports the argument. And this is very dangerous because many Americans, many new Muslims, they're not going to be able to answer. They're going to be maybe even convinced by what they're saying. We would hope that some of the arguments, like the argument about there weren't tampons back then, this is, most rational people won't accept that. But what about the idea that the Prophet ﷺ made ijtihad, and he was wrong, and Allah didn't correct him? And he could give you an example of where he made ijtihad and Allah corrected him, and then he'll leave it almost as a given that there was some other ijtihad that wasn't correct. So now we have to reevaluate the Sunnah to see where he was correct and where he wasn't correct. And one of the greatest dangers of this group, inshallah I will end on this point because I know that something else is coming up. Probably one of the greatest dangers of this group is that people do not recognize these people as Ahl al-Bid'ah. They do not recognize the danger that they're bringing about. And I'll just give you one example. Okay, now I'm going to name someone just to show you what I'm talking about. When I gave these lectures in our mosque involved in the 7 lecture series, and I quoted people and I named them, people were upset with me for bringing up these statements and quoting these people. They're upset with me for quoting. They should be upset with them for saying them. Instead they're upset with me for giving a lecture about it. Oh, you want to divide it, brothers, these are good brothers, we know these brothers, they've been working for Islam so long, they make da'wah. Okay, fine, if they did some good things, we accept their good things. But we also have to be careful that if they're spreading some evil, that we cannot accept that evil. This is a munkar. If you give a statement like that, if you give an opinion like that, if you do an action like this is a munkar like any other munkar. And it is obligatory upon us to change it. Even if it comes from your father, your brother, your sister, your wife, doesn't matter where the munkar comes from. Even if someone is the greatest mujahid, if he just spent the last 20 years fighting the kuffar and he comes in here and said, oh, I spent 20 years fighting the kuffar, let me have a drink of wine to take a break, no one will accept him. But instead, if he makes statements like this, which is just as much fiqh, and sometimes more kufr than taking alcohol, people will defend him. So one of the greatest dangers is people are not realizing who these people are and what they're actually saying. Those 2 examples I gave of the hadith of the woman rower and the other statement about the ijtihad of the Prophet ﷺ, they came from Jamal Badawi. Jamal Badawi is the one who made those things. How many of his tapes and everything are being distributed and people are praising him as a great scholar? Suppose you just embrace Islam, you watch this tape, you watch this film, and you embrace Islam because of his da'wah and what he's spreading, and then you go and listen to him and say, ah, this is Shaykh Jamal Badawi, and then he says something like this. We have to realize these things. We have to warn people about it. Yes, Shaykh Jamal Badawi, maybe he's good in some things. If you want to make a dialogue, if you believe in dialogue with Christians or debates, yes, he's good in that thing. But be careful about him. Don't let him speak about this in this issue because he has ideas which are wrong. We have to recognize these people and we have to point out what they're saying. And we cannot defend them just because of the good that they did. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward them for the good that they did, inshallah. And we accept their good deeds, but at the same time, if they do something wrong, we have to advise them and we have to stop them if we have the ability to do so. One fact, as I mentioned in the statement from, his name is AAA, I don't know what the AAA stands for. He's the one who says that Muslims have 3 choices. Either stick to the old Islam, stick to Islam, or leave Islam completely for the way of the kuffar, or modify Islam. In fact, what he said there is really showing us what the modernists are all about. They are actually taking people out of Islam. If you're a Muslim but your way of thinking is completely modernist, you accept some of the Qur'an, you reject some of the Qur'an, you accept some of the Sunnah, you reject some of the Sunnah. تكفرون ببعض الكتاب وتؤمنون ببعض الكتاب وتكفرون ببعض. This is kufr. You can't accept part of the Qur'an, leave part of the Qur'an, accept some of the Sunnah, leave some of the Sunnah. They are literally taking people out of Islam in their beliefs and in their actions. And this is the greatest danger of this group. Maybe some of the steps, maybe some of the things that they do is not kufr, but if people continue in this way with that way of thinking, actually they are taking them out of Islam. What's very important for us again, I must stress that it's very important for us to realize what this movement is, how they're making their da'wah,